evening. Our top story this week: a judge in South Carolina orders the prompt transfer of baby Veronica to the wannabe adoptive parents after the real father missed a scheduled visit, which was impossible for him to make because he was on a month-long mandatory training with his National Guard unit in Iowa. Although the real father is hoping the Oklahoma and Cherokee courts will intervene and declare South Carolina's order invalid in Oklahoma, the South Carolina court issues an arrest warrant for Dustin Brown for custodial interference, and he is expected to turn himself into military authorities on Sunday. And another woman who was unable to adopt a wanted child because of the Indian Child Welfare Act reaches out to the wannabe adoptive parents because she shares their pain. In Arizona this week, it is revealed that the number of kids stolen by the child protective industry has risen 40% over the last 3 years after workers get jumpy thanks to a rash of CPS failures. In Connecticut, the child protective industry wants to build a locked facility for teenage girls who are at risk of running away. In California, a Palmdale boy's beating death is the springboard for which Los Angeles County child protective industry is going to reform the system and fix all of their problems, with the county supervisors claiming that giving the failing CPS agents a raise might help. A research paper by Columbia University School of Social Work found that the Great Recession that ran from 2007 to 2009 stressed mothers out so much that it caused them to yell at their kids more. In Maine, the child protective industry cuts funding to a private agency that provided family preservation services, forcing them to close the program and leaving those families who relied on their services to help keep their kids in their home without anywhere to go. Pennsylvania is claiming to have cut the number of foster kids by 44% over the last 6 years by providing services that keep them safe in the home, except in Washington and Greene counties where they're apparently bucking the trend and snatching even more kids. In Finland, the child protective industry doesn't have enough money or workers to carry out their little scam. And in India, the caretaker of an orphanage was arrested after 8 girls complained about being repeatedly sexually assaulted by him. In Australia, foster kids are being bullied and are lagging behind at school as they are more likely to be disadvantaged in the state's education system and are less likely to meet national benchmarks for literacy and numeracy. Australian foster kids are also getting thrown out onto the street the minute they turn 18, whether they're ready or not. A court in Brisbane is told how a former foster kid whose twins died of starvation had a horrible childhood herself. And the real parents of an Australian Aboriginal toddler who died of suspicious circumstances while in foster care had apparently begged and pleaded with their CPS agents to check on the kid's welfare during the last weeks and hours of her life. In England, a watchdog group issues a damning report into Somerset County's child protective industry, calling them inadequate. A British social worker is struck off for accessing confidential case files on her French children and withdrawing £500 from a service worker's bank account. British social workers took a sick baby away from her parents for 6 months after unsubstantiated and unwarranted claims that they had intentionally cut her ventilation tubes. The Crown Prosecution Service is criticizing one of their own lawyers who called a 13-year-old sexual abuse victim a predator. Then he gets suspended from handling any more sexual abuse cases. And the British child protective industry snatches a kid because the parents played Dungeons and Dragons and social workers equated it with witchcraft. In entertainment news this week, Charlie Sheen's drug-abusing ex-wife is awarded supervised visits with her kids twice a week. Usher's ex-wife, Tamika Foster Raymond, fails in her bid to take custody of their kids after one of them almost drowns in a pool accident. And a film that was made in Denmark explores the consequences of a false accusation of child sexual abuse. In Idaho this week, 2 foster parents have their charges dropped after murdering a 2-year-old. In Illinois, a judge agrees to reduce the bond for a woman who was facing charges for the 2011 death of a foster child, and she manages to post bail and walk out of jail. In Texas, the funeral was held for little Alex Hill, who was killed in her foster home last week after being taken from her parents who did nothing worse than smoking a joint after she went to bed. And the foster mother who stands accused in that case apparently still qualified to take in stolen children despite her criminal background. In Ohio, a husband is arrested months after his foster daughter, who are both accused of planning the murder of his wife. In California, a man who has been a foster parent for 16 years and volunteers at an elementary school was charged with child molestation. And in Kansas, a foster parent pleads not guilty to charges claiming that she had sex with a 17-year-old foster child in her care. In Florida, the Hillsborough sheriff agrees to pay back $136,000 in back overtime wages to 18 CPS agents. In North Carolina, the adoptive parents of a 15-year-old girl reported her missing 2 years after she supposedly up and left, saying that she wasn't coming back. A group of kids who have been separated in Maine's foster care system will be able to spend 6 whole days together at a summer camp. And in Oregon, a cop smacks a kid upside the head after getting bit while trying to take him from his mother's his custody and give him to the father. In Illinois, the FBI is reopening its investigation into the 1964 kidnapping of a newborn boy from a Chicago hospital after the recent DNA testing revealed that the boy found in New Jersey more than a year later and returned to the elated parents wasn't actually their son. And finally, tonight in Indiana, a CPS agent gets booted from a jail after showing up, flashing her badge and saying that she was on official business just in order to get some alone time with her boyfriend who was incarcerated. For these stories and all the latest dirt on the child protective industry, visit www.legallykidnapped.com. And until next week, this is Baby LK. Over and out.